We are currently at a crucial point for Candy Flurry. We're at a spot where it's going to determine whether the series ends up living on and going forward, or I would assume getting, the axe. But at least from what I'm aware of, Volume 1 sold okay, and the reception from the Japanese over the recent chapters have actually been fairly well. At least from what I've gathered over the last couple weeks. Nothing kind of like crazy, like it's suddenly like just become like top 10 or whatever within the magazine or whatever it could be. It seems like the opinions have increased over the last couple of chapters, as well as volume 1 I believe sold all right. I don't think it sold amazing. I don't think it sold like terrible. At least from what I recall, it sold okay. So we'll see within the next couple of chapters. We like this chapter was definitely one of the ones where it was difficult to tell whether or not everything was moving naturally or if it was in a rushed state, because we already knew certain aspects about the characters beforehand that would have this make sense. Like the Olren Sea group knowing about Tsumugi makes sense of, okay, they're not gonna, like them having a level of surveillance to where they are able to see this despite like what Irie thought makes sense, because like they're a big organization. If they're able to get literally a drone out there with a camera, they were going to get eyes back on the scene. As well as it felt a little weird considering that the bad guys pretty much got off screened, but we already saw that Irie, like during this buffed up state, she's already stronger than both of them, and Tsumugi on top of that, and she just no diff the gummy dude. We also got confirmation the other guy's power was like is Cookie. I didn't think it was gonna be that like pretty straightforward on that, just like cookie powers, I guess. He's just throwing these giant cookies at him. I thought it was gonna be more towards that bread that was like, kind of like nodded out a couple chapters ago, but we do see some just flashback information on like these dudes and how they're kind of set up in here, and some of the experiments that went on for them. And it seems like at some point they were just all within one facility. I figured it was more like the villains just got their powers, and then it was, was one of those kind of like something like Static Shock, where like the bad guys all just suddenly woke up. Now they have all these powers, and it really would come down to their own moralities and kind of like where life directs them that was going to determine whether they're good guys or bad guys. But at least from these four, like it's showing that they were in some form of research facility for years and years. Like they look pretty young, I would assume, from the panels that were in this chapter, just like before going out. And it would make sense why they're in a group together, but it looks like they're maybe like 12 or something. Because it was like 5 years. Was it 5 years before Japan or Tokyo was destroyed by the guy who was given a name in this chapter, Amato, and he's seemingly gonna be getting some spotlight soon. And that's one of the reasons why I'm like, I can't tell if the series is getting rushed up or not, because we already knew the guy was nearby. We already knew he was involved. It's really just gonna depend on the next couple chapters, because this is setting up a potential fast pace, or this is just like how things were going with like Irie getting ready to protect Tsumugi against Rasi, and them kind of like going on the run. Maybe they're gonna be actually on the like somewhat good side. Maybe they're gonna form like their own faction, because with this chapter, and as well as like again when you think back to the origin of the powers in the series, it had to do with this factory. So there had to be another faction, at least one other faction within it, besides like Rasi and then like this Amato guy's group, Tsumugi's side. So if they're able to like form their own kind of group, we'll probably end up having Misaki in their group, I would assume. Like it'd be weird if they just kind of cut him off from any form of investigation when they see like Irie is willing to turn on them for Tsumugi, and then like the guy who's with Tsumugi the most, you would assume would be somewhat suspect, so he might end up getting pulled over as well. But also this, I forgot the guy's name, that he was the instructor, the guy who looks really kind of like nervous and gloomy. Like that was one thing I wanted to say, like him just immediately going after them is one of the things that didn't make it feel at least somewhat like it could be a rushing chapter, because we know that this guy was already like this beforehand. All it would take is like him to get some information, and bam, he was going to be on this. He was going to be on the ball, and he was going to be trying to get this moving. Like that at least made sense to me. It's just gonna like be determined over the course of the follow-ups. Is this gonna get into like the rushing where they're gonna suddenly have the Amato guy there, Tsumugi's gonna be already in her final fight. It's such a weird kind of area right now that we're in whenever we get to series and we get to this point, because you don't know what like the authors are like, what are they putting into play because it's still natural for them, or like what are they putting into play because like they've already gotten the axe light and they're just trying to get everything done they can with like within the span of a couple chapters, so at least somebody will, you know, some people will buy their product and hopefully take interest in them in the future. I liked Candy Flurry so far, so I'll be bummed out if the series does get axed, but I'm hoping it doesn't. We'll see. Like I said, apparently the recent chapters, I think it was since like chapter 10 or 11, the manga has been fairly well received in Japan, but it's going to be one of those things. Again, we're going to have to just kind of like stand by and wait to see what they have to reveal. But the chapter like very heavily focused on the backstory, and as well as this doctor guy. I'm guessing he's the one that's like behind everything, and he's the one like running the whole toy candy experiment. And I'm guessing when he's like seeing how like the government was having some issues with him, and then like their whole their experiment in general, their whole project that they're working on, he was just like they had to rush productivity, they had to rush results, and then get everything kind of going towards a certain level of success that they were able to either hold out their job, keep going, or they would just kind of like achieve perfect victory. But at least from what I would imagine, at least from like what we have in the stories, it probably just focused up that Amato guy, and then he became too powerful and it just went on a rampage. Because you see in the flashback, he looks a little bit wild just from that, like the look on his face. He looks a little bit unhinged. But outside of that, the rest of the chapter is mostly just like conversation between Airi and Tsumugi, and she's like making comments of her having like, what did she say, like a Sumuji, which is like this hair world. I think she's kind of just like talking about like a trait in her personality where even when feelings that she has are suppressed, she still goes out of her way to help others. That's one of the things I was mentioning early in the series, that she is like selfish to a degree, and she's a little bit of a troll, but like when it kind of comes down to like the bare bones of things, and she looks at like the root of like a lot of scenarios and situations, she's gonna do kind of like the right thing and be a good person. You know, a pretty solid character trait. I like that despite her odd nature, she still has that shonen main character kind of good, just like a good soul to her. But like I said, like for a majority of my interest in this chapter is really heavily on where things are going, because like I said, I've enjoyed the series. I like the characters, I like the weird nature of the powers and the fights. I think they're actually really fun, and I would love to see the series continue and to see like where this guy takes it, but it's really going to depend on how things go from here. But anyway, other than that, the comment below, thumbs up the video, but for the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But than that, I appreciate everybody's already subscribed, and thank you all for listening. Bye.